Hey guys, I hope you guys are having a great day. I wanted to bring you a video today on something that's been trending in the news this week. It is Zillow and whether Zillow is predicting a housing crash, because Zillow has said they're going to put a pause on their iBuyer program for the remainder of the year. And this has people kind of going a little crazy. They think that this is Zillow predicting a housing crash that's coming. Even Zillow's stocks have taken a drastic hit because of it. And I think it's absurd. I think it's absurd to think that Zillow is predicting a housing crash because of this. And so I wanted to break it down just really quickly and tell you guys, no, I don't think that this is Zillow's prediction. I don't think that this is why Zillow is stopping their iBuyer program for the remainder of the year. So let's just get right into it and break it down. If you didn't know, Zillow has a program, an iBuyer program. Zillow's not the only one, but Zillow's probably the most known for it, where they purchase properties from sellers. And for the most part, people think it's all technology based. It's not, but this iBuyer program has become pretty popular over the last 18, 19, 20 months, however many months we've been in this pandemic now, because a lot of home sellers did not really want people coming in and out of their house and potential buyers. So people really gravitated towards this iBuyer program that Zillow and other companies started to utilize. Before we get going too far, I just want to tell you guys, I'm a realtor, so by default, I'm supposed to hate Zillow and their iBuyer program, or despise them and be super scared that they're gonna come and steal all my business, but that's not the case. I'm not scared. Zillow's not taking my business from me. I'm not worried about it at all. This is not a video defending Zillow. This is just me simply explaining to you why I think that these fears of Zillow predicting a housing crash are just completely absurd. So let's just get right into it. Zillow first, Zillow said this week that they're putting a pause for the remainder of the year. It's the middle of October. We have less than 2 months left of this year. It's not like Zillow came out in February, March, or April and said it. It's the last 2 months of the year. It's not that hard to believe that Zillow would be putting a pause on purchasing more properties for the remainder of the year. It's also important to note that this is a typical slowdown season or pattern for real estate. A lot of people don't like selling their house in the winter months or in the months leading up to the holidays and the new year because, why would you want to sell your house in the holiday season anyways? But people just don't like to really do real estate transactions unless they really have to during these months. So it's not that crazy to think that Zillow is going to slow down or put a pause for the remainder of the months when this really isn't an active real estate time. The next thing is Zillow, while they might have a lot of data and they are a technology company, I know when you think Zillow, you think real estate, but at the core of it, they are a tech company. Even with all the data and access to technology, Zillow is not a wizard, Zillow is not a fortune teller, and Zillow does not have a crystal ball. Zillow cannot predict a housing crash coming. I know people speculate. There are these people who have in history speculated about market crashes and housing crashes and all this crazy stuff. And sure, they get lucky sometimes and they hit the nail right on the head. But the fact of the matter is, nobody can really predict it because none of us have any control over it. And we can look at all the data and trends we want, which, mind you, the data and trends right now are saying that the housing market is going to stay stable and very strong through next year. But unless you're manipulating the housing market, which by manipulation, I mean giving out bad and risky home loans to people who should not be getting a home loan, who you know are going to default and cause a foreclosure and housing crisis, unless you're really manipulating the market, how are you supposed to be able to know, or who's to say anybody can truly predict a housing crash? You just can't. I don't care who you are or what company you are. You just cannot predict it. Okay, now I mentioned manipulation of the market, which brings me to my next point. I've been seeing on TikTok and YouTube people saying that Zillow is using this iBuyer program to manipulate the housing market, and they're overinflating prices, and they have a hand in what's going on in our housing market today. Not true. This is just so not true. First, let's get one thing clear. While Zillow is doing this, and yeah, Zillow is purchasing up homes faster or normal than you and I could do, Zillow has only acquired and done these real estate transactions 1%. They make up 1% of overall real estate transactions. That 1% is not enough to manipulate the market or to overly inflate prices or to really do anything to their own benefit to make the market like shift for their benefit. It's just that 1%, it doesn't even matter. It's just so stupid that people are thinking that. It's just, the market is not being manipulated right now. The market is reacting due to a true supply and demand issue. I tell people this all the time, and for some reason I think people want a housing crash because they feel like maybe it's too good to be true, or they want to come in and get some kind of super killer deal on real estate. Whatever it is, people are obsessed with the idea of a housing crash, just obsessed with it. And the fact is, this housing market that we've been experiencing, it is truly because of a supply and demand issue. And the lack of supply that we've been experiencing, it's not new. It's not caused by the pandemic. It was happening before the pandemic. The pandemic just fueled it. The pandemic and people's needs and wants in a house, they're being home more, their ability to work from home, people homeschooling their kids, people entertaining at home more, all of that combined with the low interest rates, that just fueled the demand for housing and our already lack of inventory. That's it. It's so simple. It's just the most basic concept of supply and demand. So no, Zillow's IBuyer program and all these other iBuying programs by companies and corporations, they are not falsely propping up this market. That's not what it is. It's supply and demand. Super simple. Okay. So now that I just went on to my whole rant on why I think this is absurd, why is Zillow putting a pause to their iBuyer program? Zillow said that they're putting a pause, not a hard stop. It is a pause for the remainder of the year because they are running into, for a lack of better words, a supply and demand issue. They are running into a labor issue, and they are also running into an issue with acquiring material. This iBuyer program, at first you might think it's all sight unseen and just technology based. But the fact is, Zillow still sends people, actual human beings, to these houses before, during, and after the purchase. So before, they're sending people to inspect the house. And after, they're sending people to work on the house and flip it so they can resell it. As much as technology is changing the way and the course of our lives, and as much of a tech company as Zillow is, Zillow still has to rely on manpower, and we all know we're facing a historic labor shortage. So that's pretty simple to understand. Next, Zillow's facing a materials shortage. We all know that the cost of material, one, has skyrocketed during this pandemic because the demand has been so freaking high and the supply has been so low that it's been almost impossible to get the materials that you need. So that's what Zillow's running into. It's a labor shortage and it's a material shortage. It's the same issue that everyone else, that all normal people are running into. It's just Zillow's this big corporation, and it seems maybe scary to think that they're running into the same issues that the everyday person is running into. So the fact is, Zillow just simply bit off more than it can chew. That's it. Even the biggest and the best companies and corporations are susceptible to this. They are prone to expanding and growing too quickly and hitting speed bumps, and nobody could accurately predict what we were going to face during this pandemic. Far beyond the sickness and the loss of life, this pandemic is affecting every aspect of life, including supply and demand. So no, I don't think that Zillow is predicting a housing crisis or a housing crash. I think that Zillow bit off more than it can chew, and Zillow said they have a ton of houses that they still need to finish right now as it is. They have like 2,000 or 3,000 houses that they've already acquired that they still need to renovate and put back on the market and sell. So it makes perfect sense that when we're facing a historic labor and material shortage, that Zillow would put a pause, a temporary pause on this program, finish what they're working on, and get started again next year. I am willing to bet that by next spring, Zillow is back at it again with their iBuyer program, when these cargo shipment delays aren't such a thing, when the cost of material is not sky high, when people are back at work. I bet you Zillow is back out there with me buying and selling houses. I could be wrong, but I think I'm right. I don't think that Zillow is predicting a housing crisis. Zillow is not this big magician, and no, I think people are stirring up fear. That's it. That's it, guys. I don't think that Zillow is predicting a housing crisis. It's a supply and demand issue. Everything in real estate right now is a supply and demand issue. So with that being said, I'm curious to know your guys' thoughts. Do you think Zillow is predicting a housing crisis, or do you think Zillow simply bit off more than they can chew? Let me know in the comments below. If you enjoyed this video, give me a thumbs up. Think about subscribing. Share it with somebody who might also get a little enjoyment out of it. And until next time, guys, stay safe and stay sane.